You know that feeling? The one where trying to lose weight feels like this never-ending battle.
Oh, yeah. Like it's you against your own body.
Or against cravings or just like you don't have enough willpower. It's exhausting.
It really is. Like you're just constantly fighting uphill.
And so many approaches, they make it seem so simple, calories in, calories out.
Or just pure discipline. Grit your teeth and bear it.
Right. But what if? What if that's not quite right? What if there's another way to think about it, especially when maybe tools like semaglutide are involved?
Exactly. What if the biology shift is just step one?
That's what we're getting into today. We've got these two sources, excerpts about teachings from someone named Dan Hollis.
One's called Weight Loss, what Dan Hollis taught me about weight loss.
And the other is Weight Loss Setbacks, what Dan Hollis taught me.
And our mission really is to unpack what these sources say Hollis teaches. What are the key insights here?
Yeah, and it's important, like you said, semaglutide is kind of the context here, the background.
Right, the catalyst maybe.
Mm.
But this deep dive isn't really about the drug itself.
No, it's about what Hollis says happens during that time and after. When things change physiologically.
And crucially, how you navigate the bumps in the road, the challenges, because they will come up.
So we're looking past just the biology, the receptors, the calories.
Into the internal stuff, what he calls the silence.
And identity, the stories we tell ourselves. It's a whole different angle.
It really is. It shifts it from mechanics to, well, the human experience of it all. Your relationship with food, your body, yourself.
Okay, let's dive into that core philosophy from the first source. It's fascinating because, like I said, Hollis isn't zeroing in on the typical biology stuff.
No, his main idea, according to this source, is learning how to listen to the silence.
The silence. What does he mean by that? A silence that something like semaglutide might create.
Yeah, the source puts it really well. It's the quieting of food as comfort, food as noise, food as your constant co-pilot.
Wow. Think about how much brain space that takes up for so many people, that constant food chatter.
Exactly. So when that goes quiet,
Yeah.
something else has room to show up.
And this is where it gets really, really interesting. Kind of flips the script. The source says his core message is, the real work begins when the cravings stop.
Right. That's when the truth shows up.
Which is completely opposite to what you might think. You'd think stopping cravings is the win.
That is the goal. But Hollis seems to be saying, no, that's just clearing the ground. Now the real building starts.
And the source explains why. It says Hollis doesn't sell willpower, he exposes it. What does that mean, exposing willpower?
It sounds like he points out that failure often isn't the drug not working. It's failing to use that quiet space.
Failing to rewrite the rituals that define their identity. That's powerful phrasing.
Yeah, so the problem isn't losing control exactly. It's losing connection.
Connection.
To what? To your actual hunger cues, maybe?
Yeah.
But also to your purpose, to yourself.
And his teaching is about rebuilding that.
That's the idea. Rebuilding connection. He sees the medication as a tool, like a pause.
A breather, a reset. The source even calls it a sacred window.
A sacred window, I like that. A specific time to design a new system for living.
So the tool doesn't do the work, it just gives you the time to do the work.
Right, and he really stresses the long game here. Like, fast results don't mean lasting ones.
Oof. That's a tough one in our quick fix culture.
Tell me about it. And the scale. It doesn't measure self-trust.
That's huge because we focus so much on that number.
Absolutely. And the sources hammer this home. You have to plan for life after semaglutide.
Because if you don't build that new system...
The old one's just waiting to come back online.
There's this quote in the first source that really stood out to me. Semaglutide isn't cheating, it's adaptation.
Okay.
The real cheat is pretending willpower was enough.
Wow. Okay. The real cheat is pretending willpower was enough. That hits hard.
Doesn't it? It
Yeah.
challenges that whole idea that if you just tried harder, you'd succeed.
It suggests willpower alone just isn't the right tool for this kind of deep change. Not when identity and habits are so tangled up in it.
And he links them directly. Weight loss, habits, identity. Says every pound lost means a habit. Well, it must be replaced, not just removed.
You can't just leave a vacuum. Something has to fill that space.
Biology gives you a head start, maybe.
But only identity keeps you moving. That's what the source says. Your sense of self has to catch up and align.
Which leads to this concept he talks about, alignment.
Alignment.
You hold on to the changes not just with discipline, but with alignment.
So your internal world, your beliefs, how you see yourself, needs to match the external changes you're making. It needs to feel congruent.
That sounds quieter, more internal than just eat less, move more.
Definitely. The source describes this healing, this alignment process, as quiet, intentional.
Like the slow layering of new choices, new thoughts, and new systems.
It's not flashy. It's consistent small steps building on each other in that sacred window.
Brick by brick, like you said.
Yeah. Deliberate construction.
And the ultimate outcome, according to these sources, it's not about forcing yourself to become someone else.
No. It's about finally having the space to become yourself.
Removing the noise so you can hear who you actually are underneath it all.
That's a really profound shift in perspective. From fixing something broken to uncovering something hidden.
Okay, so that first source maps out this potential space. The pause, the silence, the chance to rebuild. But, life happens.
Right. And weight loss journeys are rarely smooth sailing. Setbacks are pretty much guaranteed.
So let's shift to that second source. What does Hollis teach about handling those setbacks?
Well, first off, it acknowledges they're natural, totally part of the process.
Which is already helpful.
Absolutely. And there's this image.
Yeah.
You don't need rock bottom, but if you find yourself there, Hollis will metaphorically meet you there. No judgment.
That's so different from the usual feeling, right? That feeling of, oh no, I messed up, I'm back at zero.
Or that you're just fundamentally flawed.
Yeah.
Broken.
Yeah. But he reframes what a setback actually is. The source quotes him. Most people don't relapse into hunger.
Okay, not hunger. Then what?
They relapse into confusion.
Confusion.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. That's interesting. Why confusion?
Well, it seems to tie back to that identity thing again. The old coping mechanism, maybe food noise is quiet.
Right. And the new system, the new identity, it's still under construction.
So when stress hits, or you're disoriented, you might default back to old patterns. But it feels less like pure physical hunger and more like being lost.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You don't know how to navigate this new terrain yet when things get rocky.
And Hollis apparently calls these moments predictable, not shameful.
Predictable, not shameful. That is the sting out of it.
Yeah, they're just moments the body and brain are trying to recalibrate. Signals you're human, not lazy.
It's a much kinder way to look at it.
Yeah.
And probably more effective, honestly. Less self-blame, more curiosity.
He uses this great metaphor, the source says. Weight loss isn't a straight line up.
Yeah.
It's a spiral staircase.
A spiral staircase. So sometimes you feel like you're going in circles.
Exactly, like you're repeating patterns. But you could actually still be climbing just on a different level of the spiral, seeing the same view, but from higher up.
I like that. It allows for the feeling of repetition without the judgment of failure. You're still making progress, even if it doesn't feel linear.
And this links back to what we talked about from the first source. Fast results aren't always lasting.
Right. Pacing. The second source echoes that. Fast results don't mean lasting results. Pacing is protection.
Slowing down can actually build resilience.
Makes sense. And what about specific things like plateaus, when weight loss just stops for a bit?
Yeah, he addresses that, says it's not a personal defect, it's the body catching up.
Your metabolism is asking for grace, kind of adjusting to the new reality.
And if cravings do come back sometimes.
That's not weakness either, according to this view. It's memory.
Memory, like muscle memory.
Sort of, like a neural pathway just lit up, asking if it still mattered. An old habit checking in.
But now, in that quieter space.
Yeah, you could answer differently. You have a choice point that maybe didn't feel available before.
This all ties back so strongly to the identity piece.
Absolutely. Your body changes fast. Your identity takes time to catch up. That quote nails it.
So a setback might not mean the medication stopped working. It might just mean...
The story you were telling yourself still needs updating. Your internal narrative hasn't fully integrated the changes yet.
So, okay, the medication, the physiological change, it gives you the space.
And Dan Hollis teaches how to use it, especially when you hit those confusing spots.
And his practical advice for how to use it.
It's about shifting your internal monologue. Narrate a setback as a question, not a judgment.
So instead of, I failed again.
You ask, okay, what am I feeling right now? What do I actually need? Who is the person I'm trying to become in this moment?
That feels really empowering, actually. Turns it from a verdict into an investigation.
Right. That seems to be the core of it. A setback doesn't mean you're losing. It could just mean you're learning.
And Hollis makes room for both. Learning is part of the process, not proof you're off track.
It reframes difficulty as data. Valuable feedback for that ongoing process of building the new system, the new identity.
Okay, so let's try and connect the dots here for you listening. We've heard from the first source about this amazing opportunity that physiological change can create.
That pause, the silence, the chance to work on identity, connection, alignment.
And then the second source gives us this really compassionate and practical way to handle the inevitable bumps, reframing setbacks, updating that internal story.
Asking those questions instead of falling into self-blame.
It paints this picture of the journey as, well, not a straight line, deeply personal.
And fundamentally about using that window of quiet, however you get it, to do really important internal work, building that new identity, those new habits.
And learning to see the tough spots as just predictable parts of climbing that spiral staircase, not failures.
Exactly. So thinking about this shift, moving away from just focusing on willpower or the number on the scale.
And towards embracing the silence, building your identity, trusting your connection to yourself, seeing challenges as learning opportunities.
How does that change things for you? How might that shift how you approach your own path, whatever it looks like?
It feels like it offers a much richer, more sustainable way to think about it, beyond just the surface stuff.
It still acknowledges that physiological support can be a powerful tool.
But it puts the focus for lasting change squarely on building that internal structure, that self-awareness, using the space you're given. So boiling it down, the key takeaways from Hollis via these sources: use the quiet space. Focus on identity and replacing habits, not just ditching them.
And view setbacks as chances to learn and ask questions, not as proof you've failed.
It all comes back to that idea, doesn't it? It's not about becoming someone else entirely.
It's about creating this space, the internal conditions, to finally become more fully yourself.
So here's a final thought, pulling straight from the source material. If the real work really does begin when the cravings stop, when the truth shows up.
What truth might be waiting for you in that silence?